Hello everybody and welcome to episode 38 of my Human Mage playthrough. Today is a very interesting day because I'm continuing my adventures of testing out different things with editing and presenting Let's Play series, where I'm kind of taking my World of Warcraft series here and I'm trying out a lot of different things to see what I like and what I feel comfortable with and what I think would make a good video, and then a bunch of other things as well. So today in this video I have a bunch of footage going on, and for the entirety of the video I am talking outside of the game about different things that we did. We're starting off today. We are picking up a bunch of quests in Theramore Isle, where we came here last episode to finish the missing diplomat quest chain, which was a very fun quest chain, but now we are going to begin doing a bunch of different quests around Dustwallow Marsh. Most of the quests here are kind of just like random, as we see with a lot of quests in World of Warcraft, but there's one major quest chain here with the Shady Rest Inn, which is a very interesting quest chain, and it's actually not completed in the classic version of this game. I think it gets completed later on, but I'm not entirely sure. But basically, we got a quest to go try to find this man's brother who owns an inn here in Dustwallow Marsh, and we basically go to where the inn is located, and we discover that it was basically destroyed, burned down, and there is a bunch of marks of like a little bit of a battle or a slaughter, I guess, that went on here, where there's a black shield, where there is a badge, and where there are some hoof prints of what seems to be Tauren. But basically, the owner of this inn, James Hiall, or however you pronounce that name, was basically traumatized because his entire family died, and now he's in Theramore kind of just freaking out. And we learned that the tribe of Taurens known as the Grim Totem were actually the ones that committed this attack here. And the Grim Totem are a very interesting faction that we have not experienced at all in this Let's Play series, and we're not going to focus too much on them. But a quick summary for right now is that the Tauren are basically made up of a bunch of different tribes, and during Warcraft 3 the Tauren were kind of united together, except the Grim Totem are kind of allied with the rest of the Tauren tribes a little bit, but they're mostly evil and they're kind of doing like their own things, and they're kind of like the Defias Brotherhood, or like an evil faction of humans. Well, the Grim Totem are kind of like an evil faction of Tauren that Tauren characters have to deal with. I also just want to point out how cool of a place this inn would be if it was like an actual inn where Alliance characters, or maybe even Horde characters as well, could come to and basically just like hang out and have a little bit of a random area in the middle of Kalimdor here to just have a nice spot and have a Hearthstone here maybe. I feel like it would be very, I guess, like RPG, roleplay, that type of thing, and it would just be really cozy, I feel like. But alas, it's burnt down. But as I mentioned, all the other quests in the zone are kind of whatever. They're different fetch quests, different kill quests, and I would basically just spend a lot of time hunting murlocs, hunting turtles, and stuff like that to complete these quests. But Dustwallow Marsh is a very interesting zone because it evolved a lot over the years, where we see in classic WoW, there's really not a lot going on. There's like one settlement for the Alliance and one settlement for the Horde, and they go off into the marsh and they do some stuff. But as you see with like the Shady Rest Inn quest chain, it's kind of just cuts off randomly, and then there's not many other quests other than that. But we see with the Burning Crusade expansion, the zone evolves a lot, and when a lot of people think of Dustwallow Marsh, they think of the Burning Crusade version of the game, or they think about the retail version of the game, of course. And if we ever come here during the Burning Crusade or the Wrath Lich King and we do the quest in here, we're going to see it is completely different. There's like a bunch more stuff going on. There's even a neutral goblin town here now. And then the Alliance have a new big quest chain that is added that is one of my favorite quest chains in the entire game, but alas, it's not here in this version of the game. One thing I wanted to mention is that we actually went to Tabitha here and we picked up her quests, which are basically just mage quests that I have in my quest log now, and I might do them, I might not do them, I might just kind of like abandon them at some point. They all involve, or most of them anyways, involved some dungeons, which I'm not particularly looking to do right now, especially since my first two experiences with dungeons in this Let's Play series weren't the best experiences ever, so we'll see what happens later on in the series. One thing I want to talk about is like a personal story in World of Warcraft that I have with Dustwallow Marsh and Theramore, and there is another encampment called Northwatch that is north of here, that is basically another Quoterian kind of like base camp in the Barrens, which is a questing area for the Horde. And basically these two areas, as well as some other areas as well, were big spots that I like to roleplay at. And when I say roleplay, I say two kind of different things. So the first one was when I was like a little kid and I thought that I was like really part of the world, where like I thought I was like a guard defending Theramore and stuff like that. And like I almost kind of like legitimately thought that, you know, I was just playing World of Warcraft, living my best life, and then I went and ate lunch and stuff like that. But because of that, Theramore is a very like special place for me because I have like so many memories here of just hanging out and doing stuff. And I remember I only ever stayed in Theramore because it was like the safe spot, and I rarely went out, but I must have gone and done quests at some point because I was like level 55 before Wrath of the Lich King came out, which then let me make a Death Knight, which was really cool. But it's just been really nice to come through here in this Let's Play series and kind of like re-experience this all again, because it's kind of like a major trip down memory lane for me. Another story about when I used to play World of Warcraft a lot as a kid that I've been kind of wanting to share in this Let's Play series, and I haven't really found like a good time to talk about it, so I think I'll talk about it right now. It's kind of an experience I had with legendary weapons, which, if people don't know, there are a few weapons, specifically like before Mists of Pandaria, that were released in the game that are basically like cool, decently powerful weapons that take a lot of effort to get. And one of them is called Thunder Fury, and the full name of the sword is Thunder Fury Blessed Blade of the Windseeker, which is a mouthful, and it became a community meme to basically just post Thunder Fury over and over and over in chat. And I think that kind of still happens nowadays. I know it happened when like Classic originally released, because like we went through all the jokes again. But it was during, I believe, Cataclysm, or it might have been Mists of Pandaria, where I got my hands on Thunder Fury, where it's not too hard to do it, at least back then, where you basically just have to do like some grinding, and then you just go kill some relatively easy bosses because they're significantly lower level at that point. And I got my hands on it, and with the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, anyone who owns that weapon has a special feat of strength achievement where you can actually link the achievement, and it's kind of like showing the weapon in chat, where it'll show like the full name of the weapon, but instead of being a link that will show like the stats and it'll let you preview it, it'll show a link to your achievement, and it'll show that you have it. So there's this one time in Orgrimmar, and like this is the only time that I kind of really remember doing this ever, is there was this Thunder Fury spam going on where there's a bunch of people just spamming like trade chat, and like, you know, like 50 different people just kept saying it over and over and over again. So then I linked my achievement that showed that I actually had the weapon, because people were just getting like codes to share the weapon without actually owning the weapon. And then once I shared my achievement, basically the entire trade chat went completely silent, and about like 10 seconds later somebody said like owned or something, and that was like one of the greatest moments of my entire World of Warcraft life. And in hindsight, kind of dumb, not really like a cool story, but it's like one of those like community experiences that like I feel like you don't see much anymore, where like I was interacting with the community and it was like in a very like humorous way, especially at the time. And I felt cool as like a kid who had this like, albeit relatively easy to get now, legendary weapon, but not many people had it at the time. But as I've been grinding Murlocs here, I leveled up to level 36, so it means that I can put another talent point into my talent tree. So I just did a little bit more grinding of the Murlocs and the turtles here, and then I started running back towards Theramore Isle to go turn in some quests around the map. And then I went to the city and I kind of did some chores, you know, stuff you do in the city with like the bank, the auction house, go do some crafting, stuff like that. But then I decided that since I have basically done a bunch of quests here in Dustwallow Marsh, that I was going to go ahead and go to Hillsbrad Foothills and head into the Alterac Mountains, which we've done a little bit of exploration of the Alterac Mountains, but we've basically been in like the foothills going into like Hillsbrad Foothills. But now we are going to go ahead and go fight some ogres in like the snowy area. So basically my main goal here was I really wanted to grind ogres for like 3 reasons. I wanted to get to level 37 because I was like half a level away, and I felt like it was like a relatively easy goal, and I was in the mood to just go kill a bunch of ogres. But I also wanted to get some cloth from ogres, because I heard that fighting the ogres here in the Alterac Mountains is a good way to get silk cloth, which I need a lot of. And fast forwarding a little bit, I did get a decent amount of silk cloth. I got about a stack, but not as much as I was hoping for, but it is still a little bit of an improvement. But I also got like 1 or 2 pieces of Mage cloth, which is cool, and I also got wool cloth. So I got 3 different types of cloth from fighting these ogres, so that was really fun. And then the third thing that I was doing this for was to complete a quest, which I completed way before I reached level 37, but it was still nice to complete it, and it opens up a higher level quest that requires us to get a group of friends that we'll do at another point. But since we're in the Alterac Mountains, I wanted to take some time and basically talk about what this area of the road is. So I'm just going to go ahead and take some time to read through the wiki page for the Kingdom of Alterac, and I'll have this link down in the description below if you want to read more and if you want to go off on tangents by clicking links and stuff like that. But I'm just going to read some important parts that I think is important. Some of this we've already talked about, but it's nice to get a refresher so we can understand the whole lore of the game now. So the Kingdom of Alterac was one of the 7 human nations to join the Alliance of Lordaeron during the Second War. It was situated in the foothills and mountains of the land known as the Alterac Mountains, formerly ruled by King Aidan Paranode. Alterac was the weakest kingdom in the Alliance and a relatively small contributor of soldiers and supplies. The Alteraci people are scattered. Many of them form what is now the Syndicate. The masks worn by Syndicate members are orange, just like the national color of their fallen kingdom. Once the home of the Alteraci tribe, Alterac was founded during the 3rd millennium BDP as the Empire of Earthor expanded across southern Lordaeron. The early human settlers built a city nestled in the Alterac Mountains, likely exploiting its position on important trade routes through the mountains. The settlement grew into a powerful city-state around the same time as Gilneas and Coteris. As the centuries passed, Alterac had grown to be culturally distinctive from those in the imperial capital of Strom, yet all the while remaining stoutly loyal to its authority. Its army had grown to be one of the strongest in the Empire, likely from its position of the Empire's northern frontier. Alteraci explorers were among those, along with Gilneans, to map out the lands of Casmodan and initiate diplomatic relationships between Earthor and Ironforge. Alterac's independence from Earthor did not come out of a revolution or formal decree. Instead, independence grew slowly as Earthor began to decline. Strom's leadership was willing to surrender its authority to the city-states within its borders rather than to deal with affairs themselves. By 1200 BDP, Alterac was fully independent once the last of the Arathi emperors left Strom. It was a relatively small kingdom compared to the others. The capital came to be known as Alterac City, likely to distinguish itself from the kingdom's name. Most of the nation's territory was rugged and mountainous terrains of the Alterac Mountains. Before the coming of the orcs, the human kingdoms of Lordaeron faced challenges and obstacles from each other as the games of politics played out. Amidst those nations, there were no two rivals like Alterac and Stromgarde. The proximity of the two and the apparent ambiguity of the mountain borders had led to several wars and skirmishes. On more than one occasion, King Thoris Trobane led armies of Stromgarde into battle against the honorable General Hath of Alterac. The tensions of the repeated discord was noticeable as the Alliance summit at Paranode glared at Trobane. It is conceivable that this discord had alienated Alterac and his leader from the other Alliance nations who had positive relations with Trobane. This alienation, in turn, would contribute to Paranode's willingness to turn on those allies midway through the Second War. When news of the Orcish horde arrived to Lordaeron, Alterac, led by King Aidan Paranode, was initially reluctant to join the Alliance of Lordaeron. True to his nature of evading confrontations, he did not think himself capable of winning. Paranode sought to avoid military actions with the horde and instead pursue diplomatic options. However, after seeing every other kingdom eventually join, and fearing being left alone to fight the horde, Alterac finally decided to join the Alliance. However, the start of the Second War favored the orcs, and the future looked grim for the Alliance. Fearing for his kingdom should the Alliance fail, Lord Paranode collaborated with the Orcish horde, supplying them with information in exchange for the survival of the kingdom. Paranode arranged for a convoy of high elves passing through Terran Mel to be ambushed by Forstros, organized a peasant revolt in Tyr's Hand to cover mining operations there, and attempted to assassinate Uther the Lightbringer by employing pirates to tamper with the Order of the Silver Hand. Paranode also allowed the horde through his kingdom unimpeded through mountain passes in Alterac, leading towards the capital city. To accomplish this, he ordered his military leaders to garrison several northern mountain passes and avoid several southern routes. Alterac's sailors and soldiers were eventually caught fighting for the orcs during various battles of the war. After Paranode's treachery was uncovered, the army of Stromgarde, led by Thoris Trobane, traveled to the small kingdom, quickly imposing martial law. General Hath reluctantly confirmed Paranode's treason once confronted by the King of Stromgarde. He then dispatched his troops to join Trobane in halting the orcish advance through the mountain passes. Alteraci survivors, particularly the dethroned Aidan Paranode, later aided Ner'zhul's forces during the shaman's quest to steal magical artifacts to open new portals. Alterac spies stole the Book of Medivh from New Stormwind, taking advantage of an assault by the forces of Shadowmoon clan, led by Terran Gorfind and the clan's slayer. The book was taken by an Alterac Mage, but was later given to Ner'zhul in exchange for military aid against Lordaeron and Stromgarde forces. Following the end of the war, Thoris Trobane demanded that the eastern portion of Alterac be annexed to Stromgarde in recognition of its efforts and sacrifices during the conflict. King Tyrannus of Lordaeron was undecided on what to do, thinking about giving the throne to Paranod's son, Aladin. Gin Greymane of Goneus also joined the dispute, supporting the claims of a nephew of Paranod, Isidin, who had taken refuge in Goneus. Deathwing, disguised as Lord Prestor, attempted to magically convince the leader's alliance into making him Altrac's new ruler. Although he succeeded in King Tyrannus' plan to give control of the area to Lord Prestor, the plan was abandoned when Prestor disappeared, following Deathwing's defeat at Grimbato, and the remnants of Alterac were left in the ruins they are today. As a kingdom, Alterac effectively ended when the forces of Lordaeron and Stromgarde overthrew Lord Paranod. However, the syndicate that arose during the anarchy-filled days after the nation's dissolution became a politically active as well as a militarily forceful entity. Though severed from the Snorri heartland, the last of the Alteraci nobility now leading the syndicate has sought to exact its revenge upon its old foe of Stromgarde. It is unknown precisely when the syndicate first appeared, but its leader, Aladin Paranod, began his operations in the Alterac Mountains an unknown amount of time before Thrall escaped during Hold Keep. So that's pretty much everything that I kind of wanted to talk about the Kingdom of Alterac, and it's a very interesting story, especially from Warcraft 2. But there's one more story that I want to talk about with my earlier experiences playing World of Warcraft when I was younger, and that is basically parkour or jumping puzzles, depending on what words you prefer there. So some people know that you can do some pretty tricky jumps in different areas of World of Warcraft. I think Naxxramas is kind of where this is most prominent. But before Cataclysm kind of added flying everywhere and basically devalued this, you were able to get to some pretty tricky areas around the world, and you can even break out of the map. But I had a lot of fun in Goldshire, where I would do parkour on basically 3 different buildings, or inside one of them, where I would go on top of the inn, on top of the blacksmith, and then I would go to the nearby farm and I would do some parkour inside the farm. And these are all really fun for me to do, but it was especially fun when I came here on a horde character and I would be able to lure high level alliance into the barn, go inside and then jump up to the top, and then they would try to get to me, except they wouldn't be able to because they don't know how to make the jumps, because I practiced it a little bit. And also jumping in World of Warcraft is very unintuitive and not needed in basically most areas of the game, except Wailing Caverns. But I think that's kind of an old part of World of Warcraft and World of Warcraft Classic that's kind of gone now, is a really big community aspect, because I would do this parkour with other people in Goldshire, and we would do it together, and we'd chat, and we'd have a fun time trying to figure out how to get up to places. And then also PvP as well, where World PvP broke out, where you don't really see World PvP anymore like it used to be back in the day. You mostly just see really geared out characters kind of just camping people, or people completely ignoring each other, or just nothing major breaking out at all, and it's just one person trying to farm the other person. And I don't particularly enjoy World PvP either anymore nowadays. But beyond all that, I reached level 37 on this character, which means that I could put in a new talent point, so I did that, and then I decided I was going to start heading back towards South Shore, and I was kind of looking around a little bit to try to find the Forsaken Messenger, but I couldn't find them, so I just went ahead and just walked back to town so I could turn in my quests and then head towards the inn to log off. This video is really interesting, and I don't know how I exactly feel about it yet. I'll see after editing and stuff like that. And I've done a few different things and past videos, and I'm planning on a couple more things, and I'm kind of deciding what aspects I like and what aspects I don't like, and we'll see moving forward in the future. This is really helpful for me to just experiment with things and just see what I like. But if you want to share what you feel about this style of a Let's Play video compared to the last one, where I was basically just talking in-game the whole time, or the previous ones where it was kind of mixed up a little bit, let me know. But as far as this episode goes, I'm going to go ahead and call it good here. I hope you all really enjoyed watching this episode, and I hope you all are taking good care of yourselves. Remember to drink some water, check your posture, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time in the World of Warcraft. Goodbye.